Coming to you from live in bright, sunny parts unknown. I'd like to welcome you today. I'm going to talk about a few specific issues to the trend-following world. Number one, and this comes up all the time, what do you trade? What do you trade? How do you narrow it down? Well, first off, as a trend-following trader, you want to trade everything. When I mean everything, I mean all markets. And when I say market, what do I mean? I mean gold, stocks, bonds, currencies, corn, wheat. Those are all markets. Now, those markets can be traded with different instruments. You can use ETFs, you can use futures, you can use leaps. There's different instruments you can use to trade various markets. But trend following is agnostic to the market. You really don't care. You just want to trade the market. Because at the end of the day, to a trend follower, you really don't care what markets these even are, as long as your portfolio has some diversification, is not entirely correlated. These markets are just numbers. You're just trading numbers. Literally, it's numbers on the screen moving up and down, blips going up and down. And you're just playing a game. And the game's really simple. How do you get in and out of these numbers that are moving on the screen? How do you get in and out to make money? How do you get in and out consistently over time with a consistent strategy to make money? Now, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to make consistent money. I'm going to say, look, if you're looking to make trend following consistent, what are you left with? A consistent trend following strategy is either going to be something akin to long-term capital management or Bernard Madoff. Those are the only kinds of strategies that I know that make consistent money. So from the top, trend followers, trade everything. That's the objective. So you assemble this wide, diverse tracking portfolio. You're not going to track the universe. You can't track every market. Nobody does. That's not the objective. You narrow down a portfolio that you're going to track. And from that tracking portfolio, you're going to assemble a way, necessarily a symbol, but you're going to have a way to enter from signals, technical type signals that can get you into the market. That's the objective. So, I always get a kick out of when people write me and they say, I only want to trade currencies. I only want to trade stocks. I don't. Why? Why do you only want to trade something? Why have you made the decision from the very beginning that you only want to do something? Now, the best traders on the planet don't think like that. The best traders on the planet don't act like that. The best traders on the planet want to trade everything. But some folks think, and I don't know where they get these ideas from, I'm just going to trade currencies. No. That's not the plan. So bear with me. Stick with me. I'm going to cover a lot of shorter type thoughts and lessons today. And look, that in my mind, says, well, that's kind of vague, Mike. Trade everything. Is it really vague? No, it's not vague at all. It's a huge principle. I mean, it's very concrete thought. Trade everything. Treat markets as numbers. Narrow down your portfolio to one that you can track, and then have entry signals from that tracking portfolio, exit signals from that tracking portfolio. That's very specific information. Now, you can get even more specific. Of course, there's a lot of different techniques that you can execute to do that effectively, but those are the principles to understand. Lesson number 1 of today, trade everything. Years ago, there's this great episode in Seinfeld, and George and Jerry are trying to pitch a show to NBC. And they go in and they meet with the executives. And I'm going to quote a little bit of the dialogue from that very episode. And so, the NBC executives and Jerry, they were meeting, they were talking about the show. And George wants to know to Jerry, what was that all about? And Jerry says, well, they're interested in me. And George is like, for what? Jerry's like, a TV show. George says, your own show? And later on, they're talking further, and Jerry says, well, what's our new show idea going to be about? And George is like, what's about nothing? Jerry's like, no story? George is like, no, forget the story. Jerry says, you've got to have a story. And then Jerry says later, it's about nothing? George is like, absolutely nothing. Jerry says, so you're saying I go to NBC and tell them I got this idea for a show about nothing? I can't say I had the exact experience with NBC, but I had something close with their sister company, CNBC. At least the experience where you're seeing the posters on the walls, the corporate executive mentality. And I'll just pass along an interesting story. This is something that really affects how I view the world and why I'm a skeptic at heart. Why, when I look at any bit of information, I'm like, no way, prove it to me. And I've got no axe to grind. I know sometimes people think, Mike, you've criticized CNBC so much, you must just hate them. I don't hate anybody. But very instructive, very, very instructive story, or at least I hope it is for you. So years ago, I got invited, just out of the blue, a random invitation from CNBC to come to visit with them. And I guess I really wasn't thinking what it was for exactly. They didn't really tell me much, and they paid for my ticket, and I figured, well, what the heck, I will go visit with them. Go up to their offices, very corporate, very big. I'm taken up to a kind of a boxy, closed-in room, and I realized I'm meeting with this woman named Susan Krakauer. And Susan her claim to fame was inventing basically Jim Cramer's show. Her seeing the potential in Jim Cramer, and the two of them together inventing this character and this show, Mad Money. And that was Susan's claim to fame. And so I walk into her office. I meet her, and hanging behind her at the time was a poster of Cramer. And and I bring up the Seinfeld episode because at that moment, what was going through my head was like, wow, this is just like, this really happens in real world. Here is, 10 plus years later, I am going through the real life version of what, Jerry and George were making fun of. And so I sit down, and she's directly in front of me. I'm sitting in a chair. She's behind her desk. And then either side of her were two lieutenants, two young women, I don't know, mid-30s executives, very professional, very executive environment, very much folks working for the man. They were broadcast professionals, and I was there, not exactly known to me before that exact moment, but I was now there to pitch them a show. And Susan had told me she had a glossy picture of me that I'd never seen before on her desk. And she said that somebody, a friend of a friend had said they needed to speak with me. And so essentially, they looked at me and they were like, well, pitch us a show. Program for us 10 hours of TV on CNBC. Now, this is a very difficult thing to do at that moment in time. Why? Because the three people in the room for me, the three people in the room were unaware of my background. All they were aware of is that I had some notoriety of some sort in the financial space, and they were scanning for new talent to fit the mold of what they do there. I don't fit many molds very well, and especially not news operations that are driving fundamental news and information nonstop, especially at that time when I had 2 books out that were absolutely nothing to do with what CNBC does. And in fact, poked fun to a certain degree at what CNBC does. And, I respected the fact that they had me up to their offices to even talk about these issues when I clearly wasn't a big fan. I think in hindsight, I'm not sure they even knew that I criticized fundamental news and information. So anyways, it didn't really go that well. Talking about programming a show without fundamental picks and news and banter, you could have watched their eyes glaze over and the window shades come down, and they're kind of like, well, this guy's not, he's never going to be on, he can't do nothing. There's no value here. They didn't say that to me, but you just kind of knew because they didn't know what trend following was. They didn't get it. And all they knew as broadcast professionals, these weren't trading finance professionals. As broadcast professionals, they knew that what I had to talk about was not going to interest the vast majority of people, because the vast majority of people want predictions, want stories, and that's what they want. They want that nonstop. But that's not the way the best do it. And, fast forward a bunch of years, and I figured, well, I've got 4 books out, and I've got a film out, and even a little more credibility has been established. This is kind of a bookend to this story. I made contact with a PR professional, and we were talking about doing some press and notoriety for some new books of mine. And I told her out of the gate, and she was very connected. She knew how this process worked. She knew how to put people on the tube to talk about their products and services in the financial space, worked with all the players, CNBC, Fox Business, etc. And I said, well, I'm just keep one thing in mind. I'm not going to be offering stock picks during an interview. Not doing that. It doesn't make any sense. And I explained to this woman, this PR professional, why. Because, for all the reasons that trend following traders know, which is you tell someone a pick of when to get in, you're just making a prediction. You're not giving them any kind of bet size. You're not telling them when to exit. It's just a random happy talk type thing. And this PR professional, clearly, once again, a PR professional, but no real knowledge of finance or trading. There's like a pause, and she says, well, you have to give stock picks. You can't be on TV unless you give stock picks. And at that moment, I said to myself, wow, not much changes. I've been writing books, training other traders, helping people to learn trend following for 10 plus years. And in many ways, while I've helped thousands, there are millions out there that just do not see what I see yet. They've not had the chance to experience the lessons yet. And so I thought that was a great bookend to, several years ago, having the CNBC story where, okay, pitch us a show. Oh, your show's not going to have stock picks every 2 minutes? That's not going to work for us. And then even years later, with more credibility, or seemingly more credibility behind me, they're still just give us stock picks. So, I can roll over. I can roll over and play the game. I can roll over and give people what they want. What good is that? I'd be bored if because let's face it, if I was to go on the tube right now and just start giving picks, buy this, sell this, I'm just making up stuff. I'm really not telling the truth in any way, shape, or form. Just filling time, making small talk. It's just not my cup of tea. So as you think about, hey, how you're going to move forward, if you're going to move into like a systematic style of trading, like trend following, keep in mind this behind the scenes look at the manipulation. Keep in mind this behind the scenes way that you are corralled like sheep to a certain messaging. You make a lot of money if you keep it in mind. Really, I do believe that fundamentals are religion. It's about belief and faith that some series of data points mentioned, projected, connected will in turn give you, I guess, the way to buy low and sell high. For example, some great fundamental nuggets that I threw in my book, Trend Following. The price to earnings ratio for the S&P 500. Has the metals correction run its course? Secular decline over the last 4 cycles. We feel an interim top is in. Decline in the nominal GDP. Initial unemployment claims. Political and social unrest in the Middle East. History suggests the time is right to buy Dow stocks. Really? I mean, there is so much of that stuff on the tube on a daily basis, in the media, on the radio. It doesn't stop. Doesn't help you. What helps you is, do you have a strategy that tells you when to buy, how much to bet of your limited capital when you make that purchase, and then when you're in, knowing when to exit, when you have a loss, and knowing when to exit when you have a gain. That's it. Knowing about crop reports and oil supplies, and whether Hugo Chavez has a new girlfriend and whether she's hot or not. I mean, I might be interested in whether she's hot or not, but not to make money. That has nothing to do with anything. You know, I like being the target. I like having a bullseye on my back. I like being the demon for some people, the demon trend following trader. Shoot me. Lash out. Hit me in the kneecap with a tire iron. Come on, bring it on. Keep pushing. Oh, this is fun, right? A nice debate, a good conflict, a good discussion. You know, a great piece of criticism of trend following trading is something that I put in my book, Trend Commandments. And it went something like this. The trend following field is marked by unsubstantiated claims of success, a track record of failure and associated rationalizations, a lack of peer-reviewed studies showing any positive results, and a collection of logical, mathematical, and statistical fallacies. Now that is somebody who's really not happy about the subject of trend following trading. And it sounds very good. You know, when you throw in a bunch of mumbo jumbo and you know, it sounds very academic. Here's a test I have for you. You know, the moment somebody tells you, or you find yourself questioning the viability, the validity of trend following trading, go to my books, go to Trend Following, go to The Complete Turtle Trader, and go to the appendix. And look at the performance tables of the trend following traders that I have there. Look at each month over many decades. Notice, which appears to be roughly on average as many positive months as negative months. Look at the data. Study it. Wrap your arms around it. Look at August of 1998, for example. Look at October of 2008, for example. Go farther back. Look at performance data of trend following traders across 1993. Look at performance data of trend following traders across the first 3 or 4 months of 1995. Look at performance data of trend following traders over 2002. Do you see anything? Besides decades and decades of audited performance results that Remember, the critic that I just read from is just saying that those results don't exist. Now, clearly they do exist. So I don't know if my critic is actually just ignorant or has an agenda. I generally find that people aren't ignorant today. I generally find that most critics actually have an agenda. They actually have another way of trading that they want to protect that perhaps I have exposed or brought forward as being not so hot. But look at all that data. I mean, forget that I've got anything interesting to say, and perhaps I have nothing interesting to say. I have no earthly idea. The audience will have to be the judge. But just look at the performance data. That's all I ask. Pull out your pencil, stare at it, leave it on your desk for several days, and then just ask yourself, is it all random? Is it random? Is it just luck? Or is there something going on? Is there a story to be told? Now, if you just look at the performance data of trend following traders and you immediately scream, just a bunch of lucky monkeys, these are the leftover survivors, it has nothing to do with me. Well, you're welcome to have that perspective. I don't share that perspective. The numbers don't say that to me. And that is an important distinction. Because when you look at the track records of trend following traders, you can apply a sole statistical judgment and perhaps come up with some flaming negative view of all those positive results. And you can say you can convince yourself that it's just worthless and these numbers don't mean anything. Or you can take a step back and you can really say to yourself, wow, how do all of these traders from different walks of life, and many times unconnected, with data, performance data going back decades, month by month, audited, on file with the United States government, what's the connective tissue? Why is this important? I know it's important. Deep in my gut, you can just look at it. And I remember the first time I started to see this connective tissue and performance data of trend following traders. And it's like, talk about an aha moment. You're like, wow, this is what's going on? This is what people are doing? Yeah, it is. Go stare at that data. Just go look at it. That's all I ask.